My parents excluded me from Thanksgiving, but I had already planned a lavish holiday with 23 guests. When they saw the photos, their hearts sank. I bought a villa in the French Riviera, and my parents didn't even know. But when they realized what they'd missed, everything changed. The text arrived as I was completing my holiday preparations. "Honey, your father and I think it's best if you skip Thanksgiving this year. We want a quiet celebration with Nancy and her family. You understand, right?" I gazed at my phone, a bitter smile developing on my lips. Of course, they expected me to skip another family gathering. Nancy, my lovely younger sister, always came first, with her perfect husband and twins. My name is Eloan, and at 33, I've become accustomed to being the family's afterthought. The pattern was established early on, and never deviated. Nancy, despite being 4 years younger, had always been the favored child. From the moment she took her first steps, which my parents documented with greater excitement than they had for any of my milestones, it was evident that she held a special position in their hearts that I would never achieve. Growing up, I watched Nancy easily garner praise for accomplishments that would have gone undetected if they had been mine. When she got a B+ on an exam, she celebrated with ice cream and phone calls to family members. When I came home straight A's, I was greeted with a casual, "good job," and a quick change of focus to whatever Nancy was doing. The discrepancy got much more evident during our adolescence. Nancy's high school graduation celebration was a luxurious occasion that included over 100 attendees, professional cuisine, and a hired DJ. My graduation, which took place during summa cum laude honors, was marked by a family supper at a mid-tier chain restaurant, cut short since Nancy had a date that night. College was when I realized that this was more than just birth order or personality differences. Nancy attended a prominent private institution with tuition covered in full by our parents, whilst I worked 3 jobs to pay my way through state school. My parents' reaction when I was accepted to law school was lukewarm, at best. "Law school is expensive," my mother had explained. "Are you sure this is practical?" Meanwhile, Nancy's choice to change her degree for the 3rd time was welcomed with encouraging nods and promises to pay for another semester. The wedding disparity was probably the most obvious indication of their bias. Nancy's wedding 2 years ago was a $50,000 production that our parents fully supported. Destination bachelor and bachelorette parties, expensive gowns, and a lavish banquet at the country club. No cost was spared. When I got engaged 5 years ago, my parents gave me a $3,500 check and urged we keep things simple. The engagement failed, in part because of the stress of organizing a wedding on a low budget while working 60-hour weeks at the firm. However, their relief at not having to contribute anymore was evident. Even my professional accomplishments appeared to live in a parallel universe where they did not matter. Most lawyers could only dream of becoming partners at one of the city's most famous legal firms before they reached the age of 35. The financial gains enabled me to buy investment properties, travel widely, and accumulate a sizable portfolio. But to my parents, it was just Eloan's job, something stated casually while they told anybody who would listen about Nancy's latest parenting blog post or her children's preschool activities. While Nancy received recognition for every tiny accomplishment, my triumphs were rewarded with polite glances and rapid subject shifts. Even when I became a partner at my law firm last year, my parents managed to convert a celebratory dinner into a conversation about the twins starting preschool. The partner announcement had been especially devastating. I'd been working toward this moment for nearly a decade, sacrificing relationships, social life, and personal time to advance my job. I cried when the senior partners took me into the conference room and offered me the partnership. It meant more than simply financial security. It validated all those years of working on impossible cases and invoicing more hours than seemed humanly conceivable. I called my parents right after we signed the partnership agreement, barely able to conceal my joy. "Mom, I did it. I made a partner." The reaction was muted at best. "Oh, that's nice, honey. Listen, can I call you back? Nancy is bringing the twins over, and I want to finish preparing their snacks." When I eventually got them to agree to a celebratory dinner, I was hoping for something extraordinary. Instead, they went to a restaurant Nancy liked, spent the first 20 minutes talking about the twins' sleeping schedules, and when I tried to explain what partnership meant, the years of work, the financial implications, the professional recognition, my mother interrupted to tell me a cute story about one of the twins' morning activities. I excused myself to the restroom halfway through supper and pondered leaving. But I stayed, smiled, and nodded for another hour of Nancy-centric talk, all while my partnership papers remained undisturbed in my briefcase. My most significant professional success has been reduced to background noise. "Sure, Mom. Have a wonderful time," I typed back, my fingers steady despite the pain in my stomach. What they didn't realize was that their text had just cemented my decision regarding the surprise I'd planned. 8 months ago, I bought a lovely villa in the French Riviera, which I kept from my close family. The property's beautiful Mediterranean views and roomy rooms were ideal for my needs. The property was an impetuous buy that proved to be the best decision I'd ever made. I was in France for a legal conference in Nice, and on a weekend vacation, I took a drive along the coast. The real estate sign was hardly visible among the olive trees, yet something about the place appealed to me. A French entrepreneur built the mansion in the 1920s, and the same family tenderly kept it for decades before deciding to sell. The instant I stepped past the wrought iron gates, and saw the Mediterranean stretched eternally beyond the terrace gardens, I knew I had to have it. The house was an architectural beauty, with cream-colored stone walls, terracotta roof tiles, and floor-to-ceiling windows that let in plenty of natural light. Inside, the rooms flowed effortlessly from one to the next, with high ceilings, original marble floors, and meticulously kept historical decorations. The master suite took up the entire third level, with a private terrace overlooking the sea and a bathroom that felt more like a luxury spa. 8 more bedrooms, each with its own personality and outlook, could easily accommodate big parties. The kitchen was a chef's delight. Vintage appliances were restored with modern comforts, granite countertops, and windows that led into herb gardens with wild rosemary and lavender. But it was the outdoor places that really took my breath away. Several terraces fell to the river, connected by stone staircases and dotted with mature olive trees and beautiful vines. The infinity pool appeared to blend into the horizon, while private resting places were tucked throughout the gardens, ideal for quiet discussion or lonely thought. The acquisition process had been unexpectedly simple, both to my legal expertise and the fact that the sellers recognized my clear enthusiasm for the house. Within 6 weeks, I owned what could only be described as a Mediterranean paradise. I had slowly and painstakingly equipped it over the course of 8 months, working with local artisans and antiquarians to acquire pieces that acknowledged the villa's heritage while providing modern comfort. Every space had a narrative, from the ancient French furniture in the formal dining room to the vibrant ceramics on the kitchen shelves. What made the purchase even more rewarding was that I paid for it with my partnership bonus and investment gains, resulting in a reasonable mortgage. Years of cautious investing, paired with my legal salary, had made it feasible. It was more than just a holiday home, it was a declaration of independence. A home that was entirely mine, where I could create the memories and rituals I had always desired. The irony was not lost on me that my parents, who had continually underestimated my accomplishments, were unaware that their purportedly struggling daughter now possessed one of the most gorgeous villas on the French Riviera. My parents and sister lived in a little bubble, but I maintained tight contacts with our extended family. Aunt Celeste taught me to bake when my mother was preoccupied with Nancy's dance recital. Uncle Peregrine came to my law school graduation when my parents selected Nancy's baby shower instead. Cousins who remembered my birthday and acknowledged my accomplishments. They all knew about my accomplishments, promotions, and investments. Unlike my parents, they have taken an interest in my life, aspirations, and journey. And when I offered holding Thanksgiving in my new villa, they were overjoyed. My relationship with my extended family had grown in importance over the years, particularly as the difference between my parents' treatment of Nancy and me expanded. These relatives had observed the family dynamics at gatherings and subtly conveyed their disdain by paying more attention to me and my accomplishments. Aunt Celeste, my mother's older sister, had been especially supportive. She was the one who taught me to cook when I was 12, after my mother said she was too busy with Nancy's activities to engage me in meal preparation. Those Saturday afternoon baking sessions have become some of my favorite childhood memories. Measuring flour, learning to fold egg whites, and telling stories as cookies baked in the oven. Uncle Peregrine, my father's brother, had served as a surrogate parent figure in many key situations. Uncle Peregrine drove 4 hours to attend my law school graduation, which my parents had missed for Nancy's baby shower. He'd been the one who cheered the loudest when my name was called, and he'd treated me to an expensive meal afterwards to celebrate properly. "Your parents don't know what they're missing," he had stated that evening. "But I do, and I'm proud of you." The cousins had become like siblings to me, the ones I wanted I had as a child. They recalled my birthday with wonderful gifts, inquired about my cases, celebrated my wins, and commiserated over my disappointments. When I mentioned the villa purchase in a family group chat, their delight was immediate and real. "Are you serious?" Cousin Alara wrote. "You bought a house in France?" I answered, "Not just a house," and shared additional images. A villa with room for everyone. The answers poured in, heart emoticons, congrats, and fast requests for information about visiting. It was at this point that the concept of Thanksgiving became clear. Why not assemble the folks who truly appreciated me in a setting that would produce great memories? When I suggested holding Thanksgiving at the villa, the reaction was overwhelming. Aunts and uncles, who had previously spent the holiday listening to my parents' constant admiration of Nancy, were now making worldwide travel plans. Cousins were looking up flights and coordinating schedules. Even the family's teenagers were looking forward to a holiday that usually involved tedious adult chat. The scheme had taken on a life of its own. Family members were researching events, exchanging Pinterest boards with French Thanksgiving ideas, and organizing group conversations to coordinate clothing and photos. The joy was contagious, and for the first time in years, I was actually looking forward to a family vacation. I took up my phone again, this time to check the group chat with my extended family. The enthusiasm was palpable. Aunt Celeste has just booked our flights. Leander cannot wait to experience French cuisine. Uncle Peregrine, Ilara and the kids are already packed. I can't believe it is still 2 weeks away. Cousin Caspian has the wine trip booked for Friday. This is better than a boring Thanksgiving in your hometown. 19 family members confirmed, including aunts, uncles, cousins, spouses and children. The extended family was huge and close-knit, spanning across several cities but bonded by a real love for one another. Everyone except for my parents and Nancy's family of 4. I had planned private tours, wine tastings, cooking instruction with a local chef, and a beautiful Thanksgiving feast that combined American tradition with French elegance. My phone vibrated again. "Ma, maybe you can come for Christmas instead if Nancy's schedule permits." I almost laughed aloud. Always conditional, always subject to Nancy's ideas. I did not bother answering. Instead, I concentrated on the final preparations. The villa staff had everything under control, but I wanted every aspect to be flawless. The guest rooms were allotted, the activities arranged, and the cuisines meticulously chosen. I even arranged for a professional photographer to capture our festivities. The logistics of hosting 23 guests in France were more complicated than I had anticipated, but it was also extremely fulfilling to organize. I had worked with a local concierge firm to arrange airport transfers, ensuring that each arriving family member was welcomed by a private driver and taken to the property in comfort. The thought of my relatives being chauffeured across the French countryside in fancy vehicles while my parents remained at home was especially pleasant. Each bedroom was assigned according to family dynamics and preferences. Aunt Celeste and Uncle Leander, the early risers, were assigned the east-facing room with a sunrise view. Families with young children were put on the second level to ensure easy access to the garden. The teenagers were put together in the restored carriage house, allowing them to be independent but being close enough for supervision. I'd hired extra staff for the week through a luxury concierge service, Chef Antoine, who had experience cooking both French and American cuisine, extra housekeeping to keep everything spotless, and a bilingual activities coordinator to help manage the large group and deal with any language barriers. The cost was hefty, but witnessing my family enjoy true luxury was well worth it. Activity planning had been a labor of love. I had booked private tours of surrounding vineyards, complete with wine samples and viticulture education. A renowned local chef would lead cooking workshops, teaching family members how to prepare traditional Provence foods. I reserved a private yacht for a sunset ride along the coast and scheduled guided visits of historical villages and art museums. For the kids, I planned treasure hunts through the villa's gardens, art sessions with a local painter, and beach excursions with all essential equipment provided. Even the youngsters had specialized activities, photography courses, taking advantage of the breathtaking scenery, and evening meetings with local musicians who could teach them classic French tunes. The dinner planning had been very elaborate. Working with Chef Antoine, we produced a fusion Thanksgiving feast that honored American customs while highlighting French Riviera culinary prowess. The turkey would be prepared with herbs from the villa's garden and served with both traditional stuffing and Mediterranean-style chestnut dressing. The meal would be complemented by fresh oysters, bouillabaisse, and grilled fish caught the same morning. The wine selection was chosen from local wineries, with tastings arranged throughout the week to let guests understand the region's terroir. I'd also arranged for French champagne to commemorate key occasions and imported some American favorites for individuals who favored familiar tastes. The photographer I hired specialized in shooting lifestyle events for high-end clients. She specialized on candid family photos that appeared natural while highlighting the villa's attractiveness. Every perspective of the property would be documented, resulting in a visual story that would spontaneously circulate on social media as family members shared their experiences. The timing was excellent. While my parents planned a nice supper with Nancy's family, I would throw an international event that would be remembered for years. The contrast could not have been sharper. their small exclusive gathering with my inclusive opulent celebration. My mother called about a week before Thanksgiving. "Elowen, honey, I hope you're not too disappointed about Thursday. It's just that Nancy's twins have been so fussy lately. And you know how your father gets when there's too much chaos." The irony of her anxiety about disorder, coming as I was orchestrating an international meeting of 23 individuals, did not escape me. If only she knew what I was doing while she was concerned about two tiny children ruining their calm supper. "Don't worry about me, Mom," I said, admiring the Mediterranean sunset from my villa patio. "I won't be alone." As I chatted, I was standing on the main terrace, watching the villa staff tidy up the outside dining areas. String lights were tested, cushions were placed on lounge furniture, and the infinity pool's lighting system was tuned to create the ideal atmosphere for evening photography. The vista was so stunning that it could have come straight from a luxury vacation brochure. "Oh, do you have plans with friends?" The disbelief in her voice was almost hilarious, as if I couldn't possibly live without them. Her condescending tone was familiar, yet it still stung. After 33 years, she still appeared startled that I could have important connections and exciting goals. In her eyes, I was still the secondary daughter, the one who should be grateful for whatever attention they chose to provide. "Something like that," I said faintly. "Actually, I should go. I have some arrangements to finalize." Through the French doors, I could see Aunt Celeste and Uncle Leander arrive early in the entrance hall, their delighted voices echoing as they took in the villa's splendor. Other family members would arrive over the next 2 days, and I wanted to be present at each reunion. Arrangements. "Elowen, you're not working through Thanksgiving, are you?" "You know how we feel about goodbye, Mom. Give my love to Nancy and the twins." As I hung up, my Aunt Celeste's automobile entered the villa's circular driveway. She and Uncle Leander arrived early to assist with the final preparations. Watching them enthuse about the villa's splendor made me feel a warmth that had nothing to do with the Mediterranean climate. Aunt Celeste grabbed me tightly. "This is incredible, Elowen. Your parents have no idea what they're missing, do they?" I shook my head and smiled. "They're about to find out." Uncle Leander whistled as he surveyed the view. "Their loss is our gain, though. I can't wait to see their faces when the photos hit social media." "Neither can I confessed. "Neither can I." The following few days were a blur of arrivals, cousins and their families, uncles and aunts. Each arrival adds to the delight and excitement in the villa. Every room was filled with laughing. Each meal is an unexpected celebration. This, I understood, is how family should feel. Each arrival had been a standalone event. The first to arrive were Aunt Celeste and Uncle Leander, who had flown down from Chicago. Their reaction to viewing the property for the first time was just what I hoped for. Aunt Celeste gasped when she stepped through the main door and saw the entrance hall with its soaring ceiling and crystal chandelier, whilst Uncle Leander dashed to the terrace to take in the Mediterranean view. "Elowen, this is incredible," Aunt Celeste exclaimed, squeezing me into a hug. "I can't believe you've been keeping this secret. No wonder you weren't worried about Thanksgiving plans." Uncle Peregrine and his family arrived next, having driven down from Paris, where they had spent several days sightseeing. His teenagers, who are usually hooked to their phones, put them away when they saw the villa grounds. "Aunt Elowen, this place is insane," his daughter Madison said, immediately planning Instagram postings that would make her friends back home envious. Cousin Alara arrived with her husband and 2 young children, who instantly claimed the area as their own playground. Watching children run through the olive trees and hide behind ancient stone walls reminded me of my own childhood fantasies of having freedom to roam and adventures to uncover. The New York contingent arrived in a group, 3 cousin families who had planned their flights and were going as a small delegation. Their joy was contagious. They'd spent the entire flight deciding which activities to prioritize and debating how this would be the best Thanksgiving they'd ever had. Even my great-aunt Lysandra had traveled from Florida for her first international vacation in 17 years. At 83 years old, she was the family matriarch, and her presence added historical significance to the gathering. "I've been to a lot of Thanksgivings," she said as I helped her move into her ground floor suite. "But this one is going to be special. I can feel it." What impressed me the most was how well everyone blended in. Despite coming from different cities and having varying levels of comfort with international travel, the family rapidly became a cohesive, joyful unit. Conversation spanned generations. Everyone was instinctively involved in the activities, and there was an underlying sense of gratitude for being a part of something amazing. The teenagers flocked toward each other while still interacting with the grown-ups. The small youngsters found playmates among their cousins and adopted each adult as a surrogate aunt or uncle. The middle generation collaborated on food preparation and activity planning, while the older family members shared stories and knowledge from comfortable seats with excellent views. It was a dramatic contrast to usual family gatherings back home, where talks felt forced and activities were tailored to Nancy's children's schedules and tastes. Here, the dynamic seemed natural and inclusive. Everyone contributed something. Whether it was assisting with food, arranging games, exchanging travel stories, or simply adding to the festive atmosphere, the villa appeared to be ideal for this type of gathering. The numerous patios enabled both intimate chats and bigger group activities. The huge kitchen encouraged collaborative cooking, while the formal dining room could seat everyone for substantial dinners. The garden allowed children to play while adults supervised and engaged. Most importantly, I felt respected and valued in a way that had been lacking in family connections for years. My folks were not just grateful for the luxurious accommodations and exotic setting. They were really interested in my life, job, and viewpoints. Conversations were not continuously focused on Nancy's accomplishments or her children's milestones. Instead, I found myself at the center of talks about law, travel, investing, and personal experiences. The night before Thanksgiving, as everyone gathered on the patio for a welcome dinner, I lifted my glass. To family, I said, staring at the faces of those who had chosen to love and support me unconditionally, the ones who came. The welcoming supper was probably the most emotional moment of the entire week. As I gazed around the table at the faces illuminated by candles and the warm glow of string lights, I knew I had been missing something my entire life. This was how family was meant to feel: supportive, inclusive, joyous, and authentic. The supper itself was a preview of what was to come. Chef Antoine has designed a menu of French and Mediterranean dishes with local ingredients and traditional cooking methods. The presentation was sophisticated but not arrogant, and the flavors were a revelation for family members who had never tried true French cuisine. More than the meal, the discussion and atmosphere made the evening memorable. Stories were shared, jokes were told, and plans for the next few days were established. There was none of the tension or caution around delicate topics that characterizes gatherings with my immediate family. Instead, there was easy laughter, real interest in one another's life, and a distinct sense of anticipation for the days ahead. When I raised my glass and proposed the toast, the response was quick and heartfelt. 23 glasses rose in unison, and the symphony of voices reacting to family and Alawan moved me to tears. They had journeyed hundreds of miles to be here, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. They treasured my presence in their lives and wished to make wonderful memories together. 23 glasses clinked in response, and I knew that tomorrow would be unforgettable. Not only for us, but also for others who had chosen to stay away from our meeting. My parents had no idea that their tranquil Thanksgiving was about to turn into something much less peaceful when they realized what they'd missed. Thanksgiving morning at the villa was everything I expected, and more. The perfume of freshly baked quiches blended with typical turkey aromas. As our private chef combined French food with American custom, children's laughter boomed through the marble corridors as my younger cousins played hide-and-seek among the antique furniture. My phone vibrated with a text message from Nancy. "Happy Thanksgiving. Mom wanted me to check if you're doing okay by yourself. We could FaceTime later if you're lonely." I looked around at my bustling villa. Aunt Celeste and cousin Alara were arranging flowers in the dining room. Their lively debate on table settings was punctuated by frequent laughing. Uncle Peregrine was teaching the adolescents how to play bull in the garden, while the rest of the family helped in the kitchen or explored the village. Lonely. I hadn't felt isolated for years. "Thanks, but I'm quite busy actually." "Enjoy your quiet celebration," I said, adding a smile for good measure. The photographer I had hired arrived about mid-morning, capturing candid images of true family joy. Every shot was flawless. The sunlight terrace overlooking the Mediterranean, cousins telling stories over wine, children playing in the groomed gardens, and the magnificent feast being prepared in the gourmet kitchen. "These photos are magazine-worthy," the photographer said, showing me some preliminary shots. The lighting, the location, the genuine happiness on everyone's faces. It's magical. Around midday, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Alawan, are you sure you don't want to join us for dessert later? Nancy is making her famous pumpkin pie." I strolled onto my own balcony and saw Uncle Peregrine instruct my youngest cousin how to properly toss a bull ball. "Actually, Mom, I'm in the middle of hosting lunch. Can I call you back?" Hosting? But I assumed the sound of children's laughter and enthusiastic talk had carried over the phone because she hesitated. "Where are you exactly?" "France," I answered simply. "The French Riviera, to be specific. I bought a villa here 13 months ago." The stillness at the other end was deafening. You bought a villa in France? Her voice had climbed one octave. Why didn't you tell us? Why would I? You've made it clear that my life isn't a priority. Besides, I didn't want to disturb your peaceful Thanksgiving plans. More silence then. Who are you hosting? Oh, just the family. Aunt Celeste and Uncle Leander, Uncle Peregrine and his crew, all the cousins and their kids. Everyone except you, Dad and Nancy. Actually, they've been here all week. We've done wine tastings, cooking classes, toured the villages. It's been wonderful. I could just hear her thoughts spinning as she calculated how many family members had chosen my gathering over their customary Thanksgiving preparations. All week? She exclaimed. But they always come to our house for Thanksgiving. Things change, Mom. Sometimes people prefer to be where they're genuinely wanted. That's not fair, Alawan. We just wanted a quiet... I need to go, Mom. The photographer wants to get some group shots before lunch, and Chef Antoine is about to serve the first course. I ended the conversation and turned to see Aunt Celeste standing in the doorway, a knowing smile on her lips. Let me guess, she asked. Catherine finally realized what she's missing. I nodded and accepted her loving hug. She did. Good, Aunt Celeste replied firmly. Maybe next time they'll think twice before excluding you. The remainder of the afternoon was a sensory feast. Chef Antoine outdid himself by creating a dinner that combined traditional Thanksgiving dishes with French Riviera cuisine. The turkey was cooked well and served with both traditional stuffing and Mediterranean specialties. The wine flowed freely, and each course was paired with wines from local vineyards. As we gathered around the large table on the balcony, the setting sun painted the sky in gorgeous oranges and pinks. I couldn't help but feel grateful, not for my parents' exclusion but for the reminder it provided about what true family entails. My phone had been constantly ringing with texts from Nancy, several calls from Mom, and even one from Dad. But I ignored all of them. Instead, I focused on the now. Uncle Peregrine is narrating embarrassing memories from his college days. Cousins plotting tomorrow's activities. Children were sneaking additional sweets when their parents weren't looking. The photographer caught everything. Each click of his camera captured recollections of what would become a new tradition, because I could tell from the pleasure around me that this would not be a one-time event. This was the beginning of something amazing. As the evening progressed, I eventually checked my phone. Among the missed calls and texts was a notification that Nancy had attempted to add me to her Instagram close friends list, which she had never done before. I smiled, knowing exactly what was coming. When the photographer's photos began to appear on social media, and the extended family began sharing their stories and photos of our lovely French Thanksgiving, my parents would fully comprehend how much their yearning for peace and quiet had cost them. But that was tomorrow's drama. Tonight I had a family to celebrate with, one who had chosen to be here, to include rather than exclude, and to make memories together in this lovely setting. And that was something to be sincerely grateful for. The day after Thanksgiving, I awoke to the sounds of waves and eager chatter in the garden. Through my balcony doors, I could see several cousins already eating breakfast on the terrace, while the kids chased each other around the fountain. My phone had exploded overnight. The photographer had produced the first round of images, and as expected, everyone began sharing them on social media. The photos were stunning. A sunset meal on the patio, children playing in the Mediterranean garden, magnificent table settings with the sea as a backdrop, and endless candid views of genuine family happiness. Aunt Celeste had shared an album called A Thanksgiving to Remember, with the comment, "When one door closes, another opens in the French Riviera." Thank you, Alawan, for showing us what family celebrations should feel like. The likes and comments poured in, including from my parents' social circle. Their country club friends, church group, and neighbors were all commenting on how nice everything looked, wondering why Catherine and Robert weren't present, and inquiring about the lovely property. Nancy made the initial call. "Why didn't you tell me?" she screamed, her voice angry and envious. "A villa in France, the whole family there. Mom's having a meltdown." "Tell you," I said calmly, watching the morning sun shimmer on the ocean. "Like you tell me about your family gatherings. Like you told me about the summer barbecue last month or the twins' birthday party. That's different. Those were small." "No, Nancy, it's not different. You and Mom and Dad created your little exclusive circle, and that's fine. I created something better." I heard one of the twins wailing in the background. Nancy's voice lowered to a whisper. "Mom's devastated. All her friends are asking questions. The Hendersons even canceled their Christmas dinner with us to accept your invitation to New Year's here." I hadn't even publicized my New Year's plans yet, but it appears that my family had done so for me. Good. Well, I declared. I guess Mom got the peaceful holiday she wanted. How was it? Nancy remained quiet for a minute. Boring, she eventually conceded. Dad fell asleep watching football. The twins were cranky, and Mom kept checking her phone every 5 minutes after your call. It wasn't like Thanksgiving should be. No, I agree. It wasn't. After hanging up, I joined the family for breakfast. Uncle Peregrine was arranging a boat tour for the afternoon, while Aunt Celeste and Cousin Alara planned a trip to the local markets. The kids were deciding between the beach and the pool when someone suggested a picnic in the vineyard. Then my father called. Princess, he began using his negotiation tone. The one he used when he asked me to abandon my plans for Nancy's sake. Your mother and I have been talking. Dad, I'm actually heading out for a boat tour with the family. Can this wait? That's what we want to discuss. Family unity. Your mother is very upset about all this. I watched my real family prepare for the day, laughing and preparing together. I'm sure she is, Dad. But you know what? I was upset too. Every time you excluded me. Every time my achievements were overlooked. Every time Nancy's needs came first. The difference is I did something positive with that feeling. But buying a villa, hosting Thanksgiving without telling us. Like you planned holidays without telling me. It doesn't feel good, does it? He was silent for a moment. No, he finally replied. Enjoy your peaceful weekend, Dad. I need to go. Uncle Peregrine is waiting. The following days were a whirl of activities, laughter, and memory-making. More photographs were shared on social media, including our boat tour down the coast, wine tasting at a historic winery, cooking classes with Chef Antoine, and sunset meals in the hamlet. My parents' phones kept ringing with friends wondering about the French villa they'd never seen, the family event they'd missed, and the daughter they'd clearly underestimated. A week later, as the family was about to leave, Aunt Celeste held me tightly. You know they'll try to invite themselves for Christmas, she told me. I nodded. I know, but Christmas is already planned. I'm taking everyone to my chalet in the Swiss Alps. She drew back, eyes wide. You have a chalet too? I bought it last spring, I said, grinning. I think it's time for a new holiday tradition, don't you? As I waved farewell to the last of the departing family members, my phone vibrated with a text from Mom. Honey, about Christmas. Your father and I have been thinking. I left it unread. Let them think. Let them ponder. Let them finally comprehend what it's like to be on the outside looking in. Because getting even isn't always the greatest way to exact payback. It's about building something so amazing that those who excluded you can only look back and regret their actions. And as I stood on my terrace, enjoying the Mediterranean sunset and planned Christmas in Switzerland, I knew I'd never have to go on another holiday feeling unloved or forgotten again. I created my own rituals with family members who choose to be present in breathtaking locations. And that was more valuable than any peaceful, quiet supper my parents could ever arrange without me. The memories of that Thanksgiving lingered long after everyone had returned home. My cousins texted often, exchanging images from the vacation, inside jokes produced in the villa's gardens, and Chef Antoine's recipes that they were trying in their own homes. We formed a long-lasting friendship there, which had never happened at any of my parents' gatherings. Even my great-aunt Lysandra, who rarely left her Florida home, told everyone she encountered about her magnificent excursion to France. She framed a portrait of herself on the terrace with the Mediterranean in the background and proudly exhibited it in her living room. For her, it demonstrated that life did not end simply because you were older. It proved to me that I had made the proper decision. The ripple effect was much larger than I had anticipated. Family members who had previously accepted my parents' invites began calling me personally, inquiring about my plans for Easter, summer vacations, and birthdays. The family's center of gravity gradually changed. Nancy was no longer the uncontested center around which everything swirled. For the first time, I was the one others looked to. I didn't pursue that role out of spite. I didn't want to replace Nancy, but I wanted to demonstrate that love, respect, and inclusion were more important than appearances or favoritism. And by opening my house and investing my time and money in making memories, I was demonstrating it in a manner that words alone could not. Of course, my parents didn't see things that way. To them, it was a betrayal. Catherine and Robert attempted to restore their reputation among their colleagues, but the photos portrayed a story they could not control. Neighbors questioned why they hadn't been to the lovely villa. Church members questioned why they had chosen to exclude their own daughter. Country club acquaintances remarked at the size of the crowd and spoke about the clear split. Meanwhile, Nancy became increasingly resentful. She contacted me several times in the weeks that followed, her voice filled with restrained rage. "You made Mom cry," she alleged. "She's embarrassed." I wanted to tell her that Mom had made me weep so many times over the years, but never in front of her dear friends. Instead, I remained quiet. "Maybe she should think about why she's embarrassed," I told her. "Maybe it's because she finally has to explain her choices." Nancy hung up on me, but not before I heard one of the twins in the background say, "Why weren't we invited to France, Mommy?" That question, more than anything I could have answered, would haunt her. Because kids notice. They observe who receives attention, who is included, and who is left behind, and they gradually begin to question why. Christmas in the Alps was everything I dreamed for. Snow-capped peaks, snug chalets, roaring fires, and days spent skiing, followed by evenings of hot chocolate and laughing. Once again, the extended family arrived. Again, my parents and Nancy did not. Once again, the photographs spoke the tale for me. As we stood in front of a large Christmas tree in the chalet's grand hall, I realized something deep. I wasn't only hosting holidays. I was reinventing family traditions. I was changing the narrative that had always portrayed me as secondary with one in which I was essential. Not for ego, but out of love. Because the truth was that I adored my family. Not the family my parents had envisioned, but the broader, messier, more authentic one that had always been, waiting for someone to bring it together. And when I looked around at the faces gleaming in the firelight, I realized I had done just that. By New Year's, the transformation was obvious. Friends of my cousins begged to be included on future vacations. My phone was always buzzing with group messages, planning, and laughing. The property in France became our summer home base, while the chalet served as our winter retreat. And I, Eloan, the afterthought, the forgotten daughter, was suddenly the center of it all. My folks, unsurprisingly, continued to stew. They tried invitations, guilt trips, and even financial offers to help me host so they could reclaim some power. But I gently declined each time, because this was no longer about them. It was all about us, the ones who showed up, cared, and wanted to create something beautiful together. So with each holiday, gathering, and shared memory, I felt the weight of years of isolation ease off. I was no longer the overlooked daughter. I was the host, the connector, and the one who demonstrated that family isn't about favoritism or appearances. It's about being present, loving and inclusive. And while I stood on balconies overlooking oceans and mountains, surrounded by laughter and warmth, I realized one thing was certain.